Welcome to this demo of XMiL Dicer. Dicer does something relatively simple. It takes all the shots on video 1 in your sequence, it shuffles them around randomly, and then puts them back into the sequence. That sequence then appears as a new sequence back in Final Cut Pro. Here's a sequence that consists of just static numbers and a bit of music. Alright, I guess you get the idea. Take a look at the thumbnails in the timeline. The shots are in numerical order, right? So let me show you how quickly Dicer works. As I click the Dice button, a new sequence with the same name as before, but with an added timestamp, appears in the timeline. And because this is a brand new sequence, you'll never lose any of your previous versions. So you can use Dicer to quickly create many different randomized versions of your cut. To make that easier, there's a floating button. That appears when you click Floater in the main window. And you can have that button live wherever you like. It's always going to be visible, even if Dicer itself is going to be hidden. That button does the exact same thing as the big one. So now you can roll the dice really conveniently and quickly, repeatedly if you want to. And as you can see, the order of the shots in the timeline is different each time. Dicer is obviously not a tool that will create entire montages for you, but it can help you audition your selected bits and pieces of footage, try them out in a different order, and it can do that really rapidly as many times as you like. There are two more features that help you refine your montage as you go. I'll show you those quickly before I walk you through a brief workflow example. The first one is that Dicer can add or delete frames at the head and tail of each shot. A positive value entered in the main window would add frames, and a negative value would delete frames. For example, -3 shortens the shot by 3 frames at the head and 3 frames at the tail. That then makes for all shots to be shorter by 6 frames each, right? So let's just apply that value of -3. I'm going to put that into the main window, like that. So now as I roll the dice a couple more times, you'll see that all shots are going to get uniformly shorter, as does the entire sequence, obviously. So rolling the dice a bunch more times makes the sequence shorter and shorter. But I can also reverse that. If I go back to Dicer and change the value to a positive one, shall we say +2, I can then roll the dice, and with each, roll of the dice, all shots get a little bit longer, as does the entire sequence. This is good for adjusting the pace of a montage across the board. So now I'm going to go back to my original sequence to show you the second refinement feature. As I'm sure you realize, the shots in the timeline are in ascending numerical order right now. Let's pretend that having worked on a cut for a while already, we've decided that the shots number 3 and 4 go really well together, as do shots 7 and 8. So we'll want to keep them together when we roll the dice some more on this cut. And there's actually a way to tell Dicer to do just that. You pick a marker color. I have picked yellow right here. And then you go back to the timeline and you add markers of the same color to the shots, not the timeline. So let me do just that. Selecting the shot, adding a marker, selecting another shot, adding a marker, and then doing the same with 2 more shots. So the next time that we roll the dice, we should see the 2 pairs of shots kept together. And they are. If you look close enough, you'll see that the markers on the shots have been extended across the entire length of the shots, so that they may be a little easier to see. So on subsequent rolls of the dice, the 2 shots are always going to be kept together. Now that the 2 groups of shots have been randomly placed next to each other, they're going to be treated as one group, as long as we keep the color selection in Dicer's main window the same. So the group gets treated as one shot when it comes to randomizing the order. Alright, now that you've seen all the features, let me give you a hands-on example on the intended workflow. So I have a different sequence here that I'm going to use to show you a little bit the intended workflow. And it plays like this. Those are the bits and pieces that I picked out of the raw footage, and I strung it out. It didn't change the order, it's still in the order it was shot in. And I could now try to put this footage into some sort of order that's going to make some sort of sense, but instead I'm gonna use Dicer to give me a different version of that, and that looks like this. Alright, and just to give you a feel, yet another version looks like this. Okay, I'm going to keep working with this version. The first thing that that sticks out is that these shots here seem to go rather well together, so I'm going to put in markers on that. I'm going to use green markers, and I'm going to put the markers on the shots rather than on the timeline. Doesn't matter where on the shots. Then in Dicer I'm going to select green as the color for the markers on shots to be kept together, and the next time I roll the dice, the shots with the green markers are going to be treated as one group. Right, so this version now plays like this. Actually, those two shots here, they play nicely together as well, so I'm going to give them green markers, and I'm going to roll the dice once more. Alright, that works relatively well. What I'm going to do next is I want to pick up the pace a bit. So I'm going to go and take 8 frames off per shot, 4 at the head, 4 at the tail, each time I roll the dice. That now plays like this. Okay, well, let's try that one more time. I'm going to leave the value at -4 so that we're still losing 8 frames each. Okay, that's too much. So I've got two choices. I could go back to Dicer and enter a positive value to put frames back in, or I can simply go back to my prior version and keep working with that. That's what I'm going to do actually, but I'm going to give it a smaller value of, shall we say, -1, and we'll see what happens with that. I kind of like that for certain things. So I'm gonna, make sure that these shots here, the abstract greenery shots, that they are shorter because they are way too long. And I'm simply gonna chop off the head and tail of both of those. And that, I think, is gonna be, my cut. for now. So I hope this demo gave you an idea on how XMiL Dicer can help inspire, accelerate, and enhance your work on montages.